On our way to Berlin, we stopped in Czestochowa for a quick detour. Czestochowa is the home of Our Lady of Czestochowa, which is an icon that that according to legend is thousands of years old and was painted by Saint Luke the Evangelist, while Our Lady was in his studio. Our Lady and the Baby Jesus were in his studio. And so we got to see that, and that was pretty crazy. Another really cool thing about Czestochowa was that while you were waiting in line, you passed a wall that was just filled with crutches. Some of them looked old, like hundreds of years old, and it turned out that those were crutches that people had left behind because of miraculous cures that had happened at this church. So that was pretty exciting. And we heard a mass there with a bunch of pilgrims. It wasn't just our group. It was the small chapel was packed with standing room only, and so that was like the second standing mass I had heard on the trip. The first one was back in Prague. So communion was interesting. I would go up and I had to kind of lean over because I couldn't quite get up to the priest, and then I had to push my way through a sea of people on my way back to find a spot to kneel. So that was interesting. But anyway, Czestochowa was a really beautiful place, and that was a really cool place to be. And so we got on the bus and we headed to Berlin, Germany. Berlin, Germany was the last place we visited. We were there for about a day and a half. We were actually on the bus. We got on the bus early in the morning and we arrived at 8 at night. We traveled for a long time, including, of course, the stop at Czestochowa. So that was a couple extra hours added on. But we were in Germany, and we had a driving tour on our full day in Germany, and we stopped multiple times by the Berlin Mall. The Berlin Wall. The Berlin Mall is also a thing in Germany, but the Berlin Wall was one of the first things we stopped at. And not all of it's there. A lot of it got destroyed, but actually, the whole street, except for the part where the cars drive on, is paved with cobblestones, and on there they're lighter gray, but there is a line that's just 2 cobblestones wide of darker gray cobblestones, and that runs, and occasionally it'll stop and cross the street, and it'll resume on the other side and just keep going. And the tour guide said that's where the Berlin Wall used to be, but now it's gone in that spot. So we drove over there. We drove up by the Holocaust Memorial. The Holocaust Memorial was interesting. I mean, art-wise, it was boring. It was just a bunch of structures that were rectangular prisms. Some were closer to the front, they were smaller. Toward the front, they were taller. And the tour guide said, it's modern art. You can interpret it however you like. And I'm like, we just came from Gothic cathedrals and Catholic beauty, and now you're telling us to be relativistic and interpret it however you like. But anyway, it still was powerful for me. I decided to delay talking about Auschwitz until just now. But Auschwitz was one of the first places we visited in Poland, actually. We got there and then on Tuesday, the opening day of Krakow, of the World Youth Day, we visited Auschwitz first. And Auschwitz was really moving. I was going there expecting to have a really emotional experience. I would come back feeling intense outrage or anger or sadness at what had happened, but I didn't come away with that. The impression when I did come was a lot more was deeper. It was a deeper kind of grim sense of the evil that had happened. And as at Auschwitz, where the question started service, and at the Holocaust Memorial, where it really kind of took its full fruition, was if there can be such a place in the world where evil has such an influence, where literally millions of people are deported against their will, and all they await is to be stripped of their dignity, forced to work menial labor, no payment, and to get ultimately tortured and killed. If this is where, if such a thing can exist in Germany, if such a place can exist, such as Auschwitz, why can't there be such an influence for good on the world? That was actually, it started to surface at Auschwitz. It started to really get louder when I went to the Holocaust Memorial, and it only really reached its full impact after I got home. But it was like a really like big question. Like in Auschwitz, what I didn't know about Auschwitz is there are actually two parts. The first one was smaller. It was probably a couple acres. And it was a short, like 10, 20, 30-minute walk around. The second one was 11 times this size. They had to build it later because they had to construct it later because they were deporting so many people. It was a 2-mile walk around. It took a couple hours, and it was sad. It was sad, and it was really hard to go through. But again, like the question, like we went after Auschwitz, we went to the opening mass, and there were 200,000 open hearts, you know. And then at the closing mass, there were twice as many people at the closing mass as the number of people who died at Auschwitz. At least that's how estimates go. And the thought is, like, with so many open hearts, the Lord can do so much. And like, if there can be such a place as Auschwitz, where people go to die and be treated like animals, why can't there be something like that for good? So that was the Berlin. So that was kind of the that part. That was one of the more troubling thoughts of the trip. But thankfully, it was balanced well with the other blessings that I had on my trip as well. So we went to the Berlin Wall. We also stopped at the Berlin Mall. The Mall of Berlin was where we had lunch. We had currywurst for lunch, authentic German food, and it was actually pretty good. Then we went to the chocolate shop, and we got some chocolates to bring home. So that was also fun. But we didn't really walk very much through the Berlin Mall because this was a small group of 4 people who were very tired and not very interested in shopping. So we went to the Berlin Mall. We also, on our driving tour, we also stopped by we also went through a roundabout, and in the middle is the Berlin Victory Column statue. I'm not sure how old it is, but I think it's 20th century. The statue of the goddess of Nike, kind of like meant to symbolize like the victory of Germany, I guess. And we stopped for mass at St. Hedwig's Cathedral, which was actually like the only Catholic church near where we were staying. Because we were in the Protestant half of Germany, and up in the north, I think it was more Catholic. So St. Hedwig's was more modern. The dome was huge, and that was really cool. But anyway, we had our final mass as a pilgrim there. That capped off 12 days on the trip, where we had mass 12 days in a row. And actually, so I went to mass the morning we left and the day before that, and so that made it for me. It made 14 days of going to mass in a row, which was really cool. And we had dinner. We had the 2 dinners we had in Germany were in restaurants. The last one was in kind of a hotel, I want to say. And there is where we had our farewell to Dimitri. Dimitri, it's hard to believe I haven't mentioned him yet. Those of you who are watching from my group are probably like all up against the wall, and they're probably ready to punch their computer because they haven't talked about Dimitri yet. Dimitri was the tour guide we had. He met us after we got off the plane in Prague, and he dropped us off at the Berlin airport, and he stayed with us pretty much the whole way through. And he was awesome. He was the kind of guy who always had a smile, and he was enthusiastic about what he was doing. And he was enthusiastic about our group too. And he said, and we were enthusiastic about him too. We loved him. We quickly became good friends. Everyone quickly became good friends with Dimitri. He was kind of like the life of the, not like life of the party, but he was really he was a really like integral part of our group. He quickly became part of the group. And so actually, so on our way home from the closing mass in Poland, when it was raining buckets and it was thundering and lightning, he hadn't come to the closing mass. I think he had to work out a couple more details. He hadn't come to the vigil, and our group leader was desperately trying to get in contact with him because we had no idea about the tram schedules because none of the trams were running. So we walked for hours and hours, and we hadn't seen Dimitri. And then when we finally met up with him, that was like the everyone breathed like a sigh of relief. Or actually, more accurately, everyone just like broke out and started cheering like, yes, we have Dimitri. We're gonna be safe. We're gonna make it. And everyone started just going up and high-fiving Dimitri, and it was awesome. And he said he wanted a video camera to videotape that part because he said that was one of the coolest parts for him. And Dimitri said right before we left, I overheard him talking to a chaperone. He said I've led a lot of groups, tourist groups all throughout Europe, but this one was different. And I can't help but wonder if it was the joy that we had, or like the joy of World Youth Day, that was a part of our group too, even if we didn't really realize it. So anyway, kudos to everybody who's watching. But you guys made an impact on Dimitri, our tour guide. And again, I'm not even sure if he was Catholic, but thank you all for evangelizing. Dimitri. And with that, I guess we flew home. Nothing too memorable about that, except the other half of our group almost didn't make it on the plane from Paris to Minneapolis, but they made it and it was fine. Anyway, and then we got home, and it's been a month now since we got home, and And since then, I've just been kind of gradually unpacking it. School has started back up. I'm taking PSCO classes now. And just trying to think about Pope Francis when he went to and the prayer vigil. Pope Francis said something really powerful. He said, "Dear young people, we didn't come into this work to vegetate. We came to leave a mark." And he said it is very sad when people come into the world and don't leave a mark and they just vegetate, where they just become couch potatoes and they confuse happiness with the couch. And so I guess by kind of building the bridges, like he said, by taking the hands of the people around me, and by being merciful to them, I'm going to try to be more merciful to everybody, and because they all deserve it to be. Actually, I'm filming this on the day that Mother Teresa was canonized, and what a great saint we now have. What a great saint we now have, and another example of mercy and how we should not be afraid to reach out to the broken. Yeah, and that's a wrap. Thank you all for watching. It's December now. I filmed all that in September, and I only just got the chance to compile it and edited everything in December over winter break. So, yeah, thank you for watching. I know I covered a lot, but if I wanted you to take anything from it, know that I learned on this trip that God is merciful, and I learned that in a new way. And I hope that's what you take away from it. I received God's mercy in so many ways, and I'm trying to be more attentive to the little ways in which He's showing me His mercy in my day-to-day life. And I hope you are doing that too. Noah, and I'm praying for you. Again, thank you very much, and God bless.